Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Valen, and this is Vintage Story. Today, you should put your artist cap on, because I'll be taking you through the wonderful world of the chisel. Yes, this is a very brief and small example of something you could do with the chisel that is already in the vanilla game. This is not a mod, this is just built into it. And let's get going with how you can also take advantage of this. So the chisel. It's something that you can make in multiple different types of metals. You can start with copper, you can work all the way up to steel and so on, but there's lots of different ways that you can use it. Something you should be aware of first and foremost is that dependent upon your world settings, when you first set up your world, if you're playing, this may change how the chisel interacts with things in the world. By default, you can use it on most really solid blocks like stones or oak planks or anything like that. But you won't be able to use it on simpler, softer materials like sands or maybe even dirt. But you can change that with a command setting. This is the command that you see here. I will put it down in the description below to make it a little bit easier so that you can copy paste it if you so desire. But basically, with the first part, you turn it off, so chiseling will not actually happen. Stonewood allows you to chisel, effectively, stone and wood. All allows you to chisel all chiselable possibilities, and that's not everything. If something is like you see some mechanical parts over there, you won't be able to chisel those, but you can chisel blocks that are complete and potentially soft or might even be affected by gravity normally, but of course this would kind of prevent that from happening going forward. When you look at the different types of chisels, they're not really going to affect different tiers of items or anything like that. It's mostly just going to affect their durability. So the higher the tier it is, the more durability it's going to come with. Copper chisels come with about 600, whereas something like a steel chisel is going to have 6,000. And believe me, you're going to need a lot of durability with all of the chiseling that you're likely to do once you start on the path. So let's begin with how you can use the chisel. Now, it's not just used for making these really interesting creations, it can be used in a more practical manner as well. For example, I've got some ingots around here. Let's say that one of these is partially used in a forge or even just the copper ingot itself. By taking a chisel of some sort and using some of the durability in a crafting grid, it will turn this into bits. So if you have started something on your forge and it's not completed, or you messed up, or something along those lines, or you just want to turn something into some bits, you can do so very simply, and then you can resmelt those in your crucible as you desire. Now, something like an anvil, in this case, can also be reclaimed. I've showed you this in the past, but I will show you again just by taking a chisel to an anvil. It uses up durability. The type of chisel currently does not actually make a difference, but you can see here we get 8 ingots back. It usually takes 9 ingots to make a copper anvil in this case, so you can really get a lot of, well, use out of it for that. Pow! And you can see a bit of a chunk came off of this, about 10% of the overall maximum durability. In this case, it would have used up an entire copper chisel, but in this case, it only used up 10% because it's steel. Now, of course, there are other methods of using chisels as well, and I was showing you a little bit on how you can reclaim things, but it's mostly going to be the effect of being able to make mechanical machines, power, things like that. You notice I've got a clutch, some angled gears, I've got a transmission, a large wooden gear, and so on, even a wooden axle here. Let's start with that. By holding sneak and pressing H, I bring up the handbook at what I'm looking at, and you can see that in a crafting grid with some kind of hammer, and it doesn't have to be specifically those that are showing up in here like an iron one or a steel chisel, it will rotate through those while you're not hovering over it. But if you take a hammer, a chisel, a log of wood of some sort, and a lump of fat, you'll get a couple wooden axles. In this case, let's take a look at a clutch, and you'll see that it requires a saw plus several of the other materials, some resin and the boards, and you'll get a clutch in this case. But you can see that it's just a crafting ingredient. Now, in this use, it does do some durability damage to the chisel itself. And that's, as pretty much all chisels are just durability based, that's all you really need to worry about and look at is just, do you have enough durability on your chisel in order to do so? So if you try and craft with it and it doesn't seem to produce what you're looking for, in this case, let's take a look at the angled gears. If it doesn't allow you to do this, you might not have enough durability on it or your hammer, because any of the tools used in this kind of crafting will also end up being damaged on the durability. Now that's not all that you can use it for crafting. You can also use it for things like polished stones. By doing the usual sneak click, you can see by taking a hammer, a chisel, and some kind of rock, which if you're unfamiliar with how to get regular, just a smooth rock that you might find out in the world, you'll have to remove all of the facings of it from connecting to anything, and then it will just drop, because a single block like this cannot hover in the world. But with a chisel and hammer, you can turn it into a polished version, which you can see here. We've got your standard and your polished variants of basalt, as well as some marble, just for comparison's sake. Now again, just to give you an example, if I put down a couple of these marble rocks and it has some stones on the sides, I can break this. It's not going anywhere, but as soon as I break this one, that marble rock will fall to the ground. And that's how you harvest those, so that you can turn them into other creations or use them for things like a quern. Now along with that, other crafting recipes might involve some stone bricks. Now I've just got some granite bricks here, and you can see that we've got granite rock slabs, which are basically the polished variants that have been re-chiseled again, and it turns them into a slab variant. But then you can chisel them once more and turn them into bricks. Then you can use those bricks to recraft into all sorts of different things, like you see here, slabs, stairs, or bricks themselves. You can also, if you have just regular block, use your chisel and hammer to kind of alter these, but it might give you some textures you might not otherwise have access to. Now let's take a look at this. We've got some chiseled blocks and we've got some non-chiseled blocks. And if I look here, it says, can you tell which of these is a chiseled block? We've got 4 of them here, and some of them, or one of them, or none of them, what is it, is chiseled. Can you tell? Well, it's down here. If you look at the tooltip on here, this is the easiest way to tell if you have the tooltips turned on. Specifically, the block info overlay kind of explains what it is you're looking at. But if it says anything about an insulating block face, then that is going to be your, well, chiseled block. Alternately, if you're holding a hammer and chisel, you can just look at it. And if you see here, the bounding box is covering the entire block. A chiseled surface will have a setting according to what your chisel is located at. So you can see that this is a chiselable stone just from the different outline. You'll notice at the top of the screen I have this like little special display up here that kind of looks like a bit of a grid pattern. That's because the chisel has its own special UI. So when you're looking at a chiseled stone surface, you can press the F key and bring this up. If I have a non-chiselable surface or out in the open and I press the F key, nothing happens. So keep in mind you have to be facing a block that has been converted into a chiselable surface. How do you do that? Well, you just have a hammer in your offhand and a chisel in your main hand, right click. That's it. If it's a chiselable block, then it will just convert it and you can now start chiseling away just by left clicking. If you want to undo what you just did or fill in more appropriately the area, just right click again. Now sometimes that can be a little confusing. If I try here and I'm trying to get this thing to work, I'm right clicking. It doesn't work because honestly I may be passing through it, or I might be looking at the different block nearby. For example, this is this block. I'm right clicking and instead what did I do? I turned it into a chiselable surface, but it's not filling it in because this, the space that I'm actually aiming at is a different block. This one here is for this block, so I have to look at this block surface. Sometimes if you've accidentally cut away something like these and you're like, okay, how do I bring these back? You might want to press the G key so that you can sit and get underneath something so that you can then repair it or something along those lines. Another way is to actually mine up the block and then place it down in a little bit easier of an access area so that you can access like below or above as needed. But now that you know how to do the basics of at least modifying it, I mean, heck, at the very least, you can make yourself a set of stairs, right? It's not too bad. In this case, I could do a little bit of this, and I've made myself like this little chair, stairway set up in a way. This one is still a regular stone block, but at the very least, I've made this little section. How do I refine it further? With that F key pressing, you have a lot of different options. This is the one that is at the top corner here. You see the icon. This is the largest number of pixels that you're going to be taking out at once. Then you've got your 4x4x4. You notice this is an 8x8x8. So this is an 8-bit cube. This is a 4-bit cube, 2-bit cube, 1-bit cube, which is really just 1 bit. But it is still a cube nonetheless. So if I choose this, you notice that my bounding box has shrunk. So has the area that you can actually modify. So I can make, this entire area a little bit more stair-like and a little bit faster for me to actually traverse if I were to try running up this surface. Now, if I go down further, as before, your options are then going to get a little bit smaller still and allow you even finer detail. And as before, same thing with any of them, you can still right-click to build back up on that surface. And then going down to the finest one, let's get down here so that I can properly aim and do this. There we go. I can now cut really, really small steps into really big ones. And of course, I can switch back to this big space here, and I can right-click, nothing happens, because you'd need to remove it and replace it in this case. So if you do want to fill in a space, you might need to click to remove in that order. But either way, those are the first 4. It's just different size options. You do have different rotating options as well. So if you choose this, it may look like you're about to puncture a small hole in this, but in fact, you just have a different setting. You right-click, and you'll notice it's a little confusing. What's going on? It's rotating this bottom block only. It only rotates the block area, just the one block. So it is effectively rotating it. Now we'll keep doing that until you change it to do something else. Now you could also flip it just by right-clicking. It is now facing the opposite direction. Here, let me actually rotate this a little bit better. There we go. And I think this might work. There we go. So you can see by flipping it, it's just going back and forth, and it's a little bit easier to understand what's happening there. And then you can set a name for a block as well, just by right-clicking. You can then, instead of having it be peridotite rock, you could have it be my chisel creation. You can even change the size of it if you really want, because it kind of acts similar to a sign. But in this case, it says my chisel creation. So that gives you another way of identifying this when you look at it. And then, of course, you've got dropping blocks here to add material. So in this case, let's actually get a few. I've got this and this, this and that. Walking back over here, and I can still use this option. Now, if I close this, or if I even open it, basically all I need to do is, in this case, I'm going to go back to my chiseling setting, but I will drop a block here to add a material. And you can add any number of them to this space. Just by adding that first one, you notice that we've got peridotite rock, which is the base material. Then we've got white marble rock is what I just added. Now in this case, I'm going to add some basalt. Then I'm going to add some basalt polished. Then I'm going to add some white marble polished. It's pretty crazy. And what each of them do is whatever you repair with. So if I close this, and you can just hit the F key again to close it or escape, either one works. But if I dig out a spot, let's dig out a few spots so that I've got this entire space to work with. I press F while looking at it, and then I can choose white marble block, and I right click. It will repair that area with the same block space with the type that I chose. So I can feasibly have a mixed and matched setup. As I showed you earlier on at the very beginning of the video, we've got like oak planks is what it says, but that was the base block. This has also got some stone bricks in the case, and this one has dirt and sand. So you can mix and match a lot of chiselable materials in the same space. Now it doesn't just limit itself to one though, so I could put in this, I could put in this one, I could then also put in this one, and I could have a lot of different options for what is currently going on here. Then as before, I could always, still do some more and rotate this around and just make things very confusing. But there you go. There's a little bit on how you can use the UI elements on here. And I don't think that there's actually a limit to this. There probably is, but each one will be a different thing. So let's grab this. If I were to use a pick, I could just break this and I would pick it up just as it is, because that is one way of actually getting some of the stones that you may want, but then they're no longer usable in different crafting recipes but one, and that is with other chiselable blocks. So in this case, I've got some granite stone bricks over here in the distance. Let's actually turn this one, let's grab a copy of this, then chisel it and grab a chiseled copy. So here we go. This is granite stone bricks. This one here is granite stone bricks, but it is also a chiselable one, or a chiseled one. You know what? Let's make it a little bit simpler still. I will actually take out a chunk of it so that I can tell a little bit easier in my inventory, and then I'm going to delete this one. So if I open up my crafting grid and I take something like this chiseled creation, my chisel creation that I started with earlier, and I still want to add some granite stone bricks to it. I could try to do so. It's not going to do it, right? There's nothing there. But if I take a chiseled block, so it's a chiseled block plus a chiseled block, add them together, it will just add the new material. It does not change anything like this one. You notice it's a stair shape. It will not apply that to this. All it's doing is applying the material type to it. So if I take this back out, I place it down, and I look at it with my chiseled, you'll notice, look, there we go, granite stone bricks. And it doesn't look like a stair because it's not. It's actually just that material type has been added to this block. So you can actually do some really amazing different kinds of, art with your different kinds of chisel creations. And with that, I think we're going to call it here. I hope you enjoyed this little bit by bit on chiseling, the wonderful world of vintage story. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to give a like, comment, subscribe, share this content with others. Come visit us on Twitch, where we stream regularly. And until next time, folks, I'll see you.